So yeah, we do have a couple of changes here, just so that everybody knows. I'm obviously not Tanis. I'm Hannu Lindberg with DPR Construction. She had some challenges coming here from, I guess, on the other side of the Canada, where we have still some wildfires here. So she was not able to attend. Travel challenges, obviously, and then we had one of our panelists was not able to attend either. So we have Tori here. Stepping in. But so I'm with DPR Construction based in the United States. We do a little bit over $10 billion of work. I'm there really focusing on construction technology and implementation of various different tech stacks across our different core businesses. So asking here to just host today the lessons learned from the industrial sector. And we've got some experts here to share their experiences today around different topics that we're going to be covering today. A couple of different themes that we'll address on just implementation and adoption and the challenges and the return on investment on different technology initiatives. We'll start by just kicking it off by letting everybody do some introductions so you get to know who the panelists are a little bit more. Let them do the introductions, and then we'll come back and start with the questions. We've got some pre-prepared questions, just so that you know, but then we'll be certainly willing to open it up for some questions from you guys as well. So no rush, but we'll get through a couple things and get going. But why don't we start just doing some introductions? Adam, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Adam McKertcher. I'm the Digital Solutions Manager for Graham Construction and Engineering. And so I lead a team of developers and business analysts where we build and deploy software solutions specific to some of the niche problems that our business unit has. Corey?
Right on. Yeah, my name is Corey Nathan, and I'm the General Manager at Lamsar Inc. And we're a full-service Tier 1 heavy industrial contractor and manufacturer. We service household brand names within the energy transition sector. We have 6 manufacturing facilities and module facilities in Sarnia, Ontario, and we specialize in offsite construction.
Great. John, go ahead.
Yep. My name is John Wilke, Vice President of Enterprise Services for Zachry Group. The Zachry Group has about 17,000 employees. We have an engineering business line, a large EPC projects business line, and then some other maintenance and specialty turnaround industrial services that we perform.
Great. All right, let's kick it off. Our first topic is really about organizational and project technology. So obviously every project is unique and different, but how do contractors, how do you standardize and scale technology stacks when owners have different reporting requirements and sometimes you're coming into a project and everybody brings their own technology stack. So how do you avoid having too many tools in the toolbox, so to speak, when you're implementing your tech stacks? Maybe we can kick this off with really starting with Corey.
Yeah, so our strategy is really around what we can control, and that starts with understanding your customer. So at Lamsar, just to give you a perspective, our customers are the likes of ExxonMobil, Suncor, Shell, Enbridge, Dow Chemicals, Nova Chemicals. So they're very different, but at the same time, they're very similar. They all have management globally. They have significant asset portfolio, and they have large supply chains. So generally, their technology strategies are very similar. They're focused on procurement and asset management, and it's their expectation that we service those gaps. So, which leads us a significant opportunity to close in those gaps. We see digital procurement requirements within our contracts that we're procuring. We win work based off our digitization strategy. And again, it's all about the customer relationship at Lamsar and identifying what their strategy is to define our strategy and communicating our alignments, the gaps, and the wins and the losses between those relationships on a project-by-project basis.
John, do you have anything similar kind of challenges or?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I'll speak to our mega project space. So our strategy, right, wrong, or indifferent, is this is anecdotal, but it's the old school 80-20 rule. So we try and have a confident point of view around 80% of our tech stack. So we have to source employees, we have to pay employees. On any project we do, you have to source, you have to pay, right? You have a schedule that you have to measure. You have budgets. You have progress. You have quantities that you have to track. You have to track. We always have joint venture partners on these multi-million-dollar projects, so you have partner data and information. But anyhow, so we sort of come in and we say, hey, this 80% of it's non-negotiable. We're going to use this stack, and then the other 20% is where we just know we're going to have to be flexible. We do a lot of integrations with some of our key suppliers and our partners, vendors, OEMs, things like that. We know going into it, and then the last piece of that strategy is, and this is an important one, the other 20% that you're going to have to integrate, you got to have some sort of data strategy. So we create what we call a project data lake for each project, and that's the only thing that will allow anyone to access. All of the 80% of our legacy applications, they all sit sort of above that, and then our team internally will extract that data, put it in the project data lake, and that's where we keep all of our integrations tied into to keep the appropriate fidelity.
Okay, interesting. So they can individually tap into that project data lake to then build those integrations in other systems. Yep. Okay. So they're not getting into the whole company data lake. Got it. Okay. That's a very interesting approach.
I've got one more thing to add.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I would just add, just to pepper across all of this conversation, is one of the conversations I always try to steer people away from is that a lot of people in our field will say, oh, our competitors have this feature and we need this feature. Or, they're tying into the client system over there and that is a thing we should also do, without necessarily thinking about what's the problem that's being solved there. Yeah. Just because we could doesn't mean we should. And so one of the things I always encourage people to do is to steer away from being feature driven to being problem solving driven. What is the problem that we're trying to solve here? Because there's an infinite number of features out in the world, but 80-20 rule, there's only a small number of those features that deliver most of the value. And so that's the conversation I try to give to everybody is let's move away from falling in love with the feature. Let's fall in love with the problem we're trying to solve.
Okay, great. So moving on to the next question here. So construction often gets a bad rap when it comes to investments in technology. Certainly varies from industry sectors, obviously. But do you feel that the industry is still under-investing in technology, just compared to what it was maybe a decade ago? Or have you seen significant changes and shifts?
I think we're seeing improvements. I think that there's still a lot to be gained. One of the themes I'm noticing today in a lot of conversations are just around the human factors, and adoption. When I chat with a lot of people, user adoption is such a difficult thing to be achieved. And I think it's because we're rushing the deployment of a lot of things. We're not very clear about what the value is, or we're not clear about what leadership's buy-in is here. And taking a little bit more time, I think, on clean execution, making sure that everybody feels equipped to deploy it well. I think that's a small area of the budget that needs to get a little bit more attention so that the rest of this technology gets some more traction.
Yeah, and just to bridge off of that, I mean, I as well think we're making prominent gains, and there's obviously a lot of areas for improvement. And I mean, we just heard from 3 industry leaders in Ontario and across Canada, and even globally in Elliston, Hilti, and PCL this morning. And what I heard, across those 3 businesses, we're looking at $18 billion in revenue, and they're talking about $1 billion investment annually in technology, right? So you're thinking potentially 5% gross is their investment this year into technology, which is, I think, a significant risk from a business standpoint. So, I don't think there's, much more that they can invest at this time. And, the model is going to change. So I think, as these industry leaders continue to, put their business at risk, their employees at risk, their partners and subs at risk, to invest in technology to deploy that change, I think it's going to continue to improve as soon as we see those production numbers start to yield that curve.
I'm going to go off script a little bit and ask my own personal question here. Is like, are you doing any subtraction per se, saying, because everybody had the shiny new object syndrome there for the last 5-10 years, and you're seeing you've got all these point solutions. Are you doing more subtraction than even building some of your own solution? Are you investing more in standardizing on a couple of platforms, or actually building things in-house as well?
We actually, about 1.5 years ago, did technology strategy refresh, and part of that strategy refresh, it does the vernacular used wasn't subtracting, but it's consolidating, which is just a different way of saying that. So yeah, absolutely, we have been absolutely. We call it data warehouse and application consolidation, because we have several different business lines, and like where can we gain some continuity, and does every business line need its own custom application? Probably not today's day and age. So, but it's a tough process to go through, but we've at least acknowledged it and got buy-in. It's part of our formal technology strategy that we're rolling out. So we're trying it.
Yep, good deal. So as an industry where maybe some haven't had such a large digital footprint, how are you leveraging technology for the full employee lifecycle experience, including the craft personnel? Curious if you want to take this one in, or
full lifecycle. Yeah, that one's a really interesting one. And so we're currently these are projects that aren't necessarily under my oversight, but I'm aware of them, where we are looking at hire to retire type projects to understand how we're cultivating employees all the way throughout the life cycle. I would say that that's very much we're very much in the beginning of that journey. But it's really exciting to see that our organization is having that attitude of, all right, as soon as this person walks in the door, how are we cultivating? I think it was Richard who was talking this morning about thinking of the employer as an educator. How are you investing in these people? I think historically our industry looks at some of these positions, these trades, these field workers as just a hot seat where it's just who's in that seat at the moment, and they don't want to invest in these people. Thinking a little bit more about, we treat our office workers this way. Why don't we treat our field workers the same way? And starting to see that there's some cohesion in those two systems. So we're starting to move in that direction.
Great. John, do you have anything specific to add to this one?
We're in 3 weeks, we're going live, knock on wood, with phase 1 of a full HCM. We call it source to separate application. We went with Oracle Cloud, so it's a big investment for us, and it's across all business groups, all getting on the same platform. So about 17,000 employees will make that transition here in a few weeks. So yeah, we're investing in that space as well.
Okay.
Trying to.
Excellent. So how are, just kind of piggyback on that sort of project life cycle, I mean, there's obviously a lot of data and duplicate data entry and just nuances between different processes and workflows. How are you guys bridging the data gaps, but also the communication gaps between just the office and field teams, right? We always kind of talk about the information flowing down to the teams and the fields and putting in the work, and how are you really bridging those gaps? Curious, Corey, what's your approach to this challenge?
Yeah, so at Lamstar, one of our slogans is we install what we build. So meaning we self-perform the majority of our work. So this conversation's very near and dear to our heart. So as part of our digitization strategy, as I mentioned before, it's all about what we can control. And, we're in the industry of measuring time. So in Hilty's presentation today, it was a perfect example of 30% of a man's day or a man's hour is spent with his hand-on tools. And internally in our organization, we're measuring 40%. So I highly doubt we're 10% higher than even industry average, but I'll take that as a compliment. But at the end of the day, it's all about what the field is asking for. And in our company right now, that's key data metrics that we're tracking. And 80% of the time, they're asking for materials and deliveries. The remaining, tools, equipment, drawings, coordination, tasks not being ready, but materials and deliveries in the supply chain is something really that we're focused on as an organization for our digitization. And generally, we control our entire life cycle from purchasing all the way through installing. So we buy, we manufacture, we fabricate, and we transport and we install. So, I mean, we have nobody to blame but ourselves at the end of the day. And, we've invested in over $3 million over the last 2-3 years. So I also see us as beginning to be leaders. We're a much smaller organization as an industrial contractor than, Zachry Group as an example. Or Ellis Dons and PCL. So that investment to us is significant. And, all of our parts are being digitized. All of that information is now available. for us to translate to productivity, for us to be able to communicate to our clients, our customers, where their assets are, where their project is, and be able to start influencing that change as the structure of the construction industry continues to digitally transform. So that's our current strategy today.
Interesting. Anybody else from the panel have any comments and thoughts on that, or are we good to move on? Awesome.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts. So for the communication gaps that we've noticed, so specifically in the industrial side, a lot of our clients in particular have restrictions on, say, intrinsically safe devices. And so that becomes such a bottleneck for communication on site. But we're noticing that some of our clients that are becoming more open to the idea of intrinsically safe enclosures for devices for, safety against sparks and ignition. And what that allows for is just a much more efficient conversation, which to anybody who doesn't have an intrinsically safe requirement on their site, they're like, oh, you've got tablets on site, big deal. For us, this is huge because it gives you an intrinsically safe camera with which to have a conversation, take a picture of something, send an issue to a site super and have that dialogue. Whereas before, that site super had to get in a truck, drive across site for 15 minutes at 15 kilometers an hour, climb up onto level 4 just to spot, oh, here's the practical problem. And so, in the industrial sector, especially where you have some of these safety restrictions, we kind of take for granted that we just assume that they have high fidelity modalities of communication the way that we do in the office. We take that for granted. And just noticing that they're a little bit further behind and championing for those tools, championing for a device with a camera and a screen, because that will support so many conversations. Which then there's another subpoint that I want to add is being able to pick up a phone. These guys, they're not, I wouldn't say that they're technology inept, but they don't sit at a computer typing 100 words per minute, writing a really complicated email with pictures and hyperlinks about what the complicated issue is. For them is not the natural way of communicating a problem. Their way of communicating a problem is picking up the radio saying, I got a problem, help me fix it. Yeah. And so for us being, as the technical support, sometimes we also need to be as willing to pick up the phone, pick up the Teams chat and have a conversation with them rather than forcing them over email and chat, which again sounds really quite simple, but native modalities for that group of people, I think, is a really important conversation to consider.
Great. So keeping up with themes of lessons learned, kind of our third topic here is related to just people and talent. So what are you guys doing from an IT and technical talent perspective? It's extremely difficult to find. And what lessons can you share about recruiting the top technical talent in the industry? John, do you have any perspectives on this that you share?
Yes. So one thing that a silver bullet fix for that is when you're investing in tech people want to come to work for you. So it's kind of an easy question to answer at this current moment in time, because right now we're doing a lot of investing and it is what it is. It's easier to attract technical professionals when you're doing a lot of investing. I think that, developers like to develop. And so one of the other things that we always do, we have an in-house dev team. And so we always at least, there are a few things that we'll carve out and we'll customize versus buying off the shelf because our dev team, they'll work on some of your legacy stuff, but they really enjoy building the new, right? And we even, they can't be unchaperoned. The developer deal directly with the business, because that can lead to really crazy things. But we connect. They love it. It's like, holy cow, yeah.
Scope creep.
Yeah. And then anyhow, that's a whole another session. But if you have the right people making that connection, the developers love talking to the business, and the business loves talking to the developers. You just got to make sure that you facilitate that conversation the right way, and they love the feedback. So yeah, I think as long as you're investing and you can keep your dev team, your data architect, keep the team connected to the business. They like to hear directly from the business, like, hey, what you're doing is helping me with X, Y, and Z. They love that feedback. So it kind of, to your point on the previous question, right? Keep them connected. They really, really, really like that.
If I can bolster that just a little bit more, the idea of a DevOps culture, that development and operations, synergy between, and that dialogue between what is actually happening on the front line and what is happening on the development side, and implementing agile and subsequently a DevOps culture, I think is a really healthy dynamic to one. I think it's a really healthy dynamic to one. Developers love it because they get to talk to the people they're delivering value for, and the people in our field love it too because they feel heard. And we can have nuanced conversations where we say, well, what's the most important? We can't build everything for you, but what's the most important thing? And that allows us to be much more efficient with our development work because people don't like to build things that don't move the needle.
Great. Corey, anything to add there, or you want me to move?
Yeah, I mean, I echo John's point. I mean, we're not struggling at any point to find talent from and trade partners from data analytics and software development. Where we're struggling is finding tradespeople that are willing to adapt to the technology that we're putting in the field. So, and I think we're going to continue. I mean, there's some that are more willing than others, and there's some union agreements also that prevent us from doing certain things that become challenging. So. I think we'll continue to evolve as we go, but at this time we're finding that fine line and that balance between self-perform and outsource. And at this time we're not struggling finding any resources from a software development standpoint.
Great. How are the expectations related to work changing with the new generation, Gen Z, and how are your organizations changing your approach to recruitment to speak more to that Generation Z? I'm assuming that they don't want to come in. I'm not saying we're an analog industry, but they've probably much more akin to adopt some of these technologies. But is there a recruitment approach and strategy, and what are you guys doing in your companies to maybe attract some of that talent as well?
I can speak to my team, and then I'll also try to speak to broader.
Sure.
So on my team, I always look at the different ways that people are motivated. Some people are motivated by income. Some people are motivated by impact. Some people are motivated by connecting with people, things like that. When I look at younger generations and what they're motivated by, income's very rarely, if ever, at the top of their list. It's very rarely at the top of their motivation stack. Impact is often at the very top. And so when I'm interviewing people, the people who want to come work for our team are the people who want to see that the work they're doing makes a difference. And with that, you have to be able to show it. You got to be able to demonstrate it. And I find that goes a really long way. And then finding a fine balance between giving them some autonomy as well. This is young people like to have some amount of autonomy. They don't want to be told this is, they don't want to, nobody wants a mass production job where it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. They want some ability to self-lead and being able to do that in a way where there's some structured learning, but also, some ability, some safe spaces to make some mistakes. Yeah. And letting them know that you're going to give them some space to make some mistakes and that they'll learn from that. I think, that impact and that autonomy, those are two things that I use on my team to find talent who are excited to join the team. And when I think about the field workers that could also benefit from these same principles, in today's discussion, we talked about how the average trade person makes 25% more than somebody with a bachelor's degree. So that, boom, income, but that's not motivating people to jump into the trades. We talk about impact, where Canada needs 3 times as much stuff in the next 75 years. Impact's there. Income and impact are both there, but it's still not motivating people to jump into the trades. I think being able to highlight to them that, when you step into a trade, it doesn't put you on a really narrow career path that has a fixed outcome, but instead opens up doors and telling the stories about, how people use that as a launch point for expanded and complicated career paths where they would have never planned it. I think that's the part that if I were targeting trades, that's the thing I would be pumping the tires for.
Interesting. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on Gen-G? All right. Let's talk a little bit about obviously just the measuring success. I mean, if you're not keeping score, it's just practice, right? That's kind of the terminology we use here at our company. So it's all about measuring really what matters. What insights can you share about measurements of those strategic benefits of tech to an organizations, and how have your teams approached this?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Well, part of the technology strategy that we rolled out a year and a half ago, again, right, wrong, or indifferent, we actually sat down and defined, what do we view as a business going to view as a value add, right? And so we landed on 4 categories. It's not rocket science, but will it bring value to our employees? Is there market value? Market value, by the way, our definition of market value means that the market may perceive value, or potential customers may perceive value in whatever this is that you're investing in, but that may not necessarily mean that there's actual value to how you're going to execute the work. You have to acknowledge that exists. It exists in the marketplace. Customers, there are certain things that they view that have value, even if it may not bring value to the way that you execute the work in the field. It doesn't matter. There still could be value. So that's what market value. So employee, market, and then planning and execution value, which is a statement of the obvious, right? Is it going to increase productivity? Is it going to drive more visibility? Is it going to bring more visibility so we make more timely strategic decisions? And then there's safety, both in the literal sense, keeping employees safe, and then also from a cybersecurity perspective. Relative to safety. And then once you stack hands on what you as an organization believe value means, then you measure it, right?
Yeah.
You do an evaluation of each investment you're considering.
Yeah. Set some benchmarks and go from there. Yeah. Corey, what's your approach? Similar or any kind of differences?
Yeah, I'll just echo that. And the one other category that we measure that John didn't allude to is from a quality standpoint. Quality in our business and in our industry is a key metric that we're asked to provide to our customers, and to continue to be industry leaders. That was part of the one thing that we continued to measure was quality.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like similar themes. I mean, yes, we also started looking at measuring the health of our teams and things like that, as well as we've got some company strategies around innovative approaches to doing construction. So we've put a couple extra carrots on there, but it's all about budget, finances, quality, planning and scheduling, right? It's kind of the same themes come across. Which technology KPIs do you feel organizations should be tracking? Should ROI be the focus, or are there other metrics that organizations should hone in on? I mentioned that this sort of the healthy teams kind of a concept, right? Because we're all trying to keep all the people, but what are some other things that you guys are looking at?
I generally try to keep this quite simple. So I'm assuming that, we've already approved a project and it's already underway, and we're in the process of building features and answering problems. And one of the KPIs it's the only one I actually really talk about, is cost of delay. And I always express that in terms of dollars per month. And the reason I focus on that is because everybody understands dollars per month is it's a human scale number. And when we start talking about problems to solve, it helps everyone have a universal metric for triage. And I talk about triage because I used to work in healthcare. If you go into a hospital, if you break your arm, you are having a bad day. And no one will question whether or not you're having a bad day. But the guy being wheeled in having a cardiac arrest is having a worse day, and he gets in line first. Cost of delay helps us do the same triage for prioritizing problems in our company, where the bigger the cost of delay, meaning if we wait for 1 month, this is what it will cost the company. The biggest line item goes first.
Yeah.
And it helps calm everyone down, and it helps everyone make sure that we're on the same page. Because when I go to somebody and I say, this is a $10,000 per month cost of delay, and you've got $1,000 cost of delay, can I put yours on pause for a little while. People say, "Oh yeah, by all means, like take your time," as opposed to there is it's often the attitude of, "How come you're not working on my request right now?"
So we have to prioritize, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that cost to delay metric really helps us prioritize. It helps everybody, it helps all of our stakeholders get aligned as well, where they start to see how they fit into the broader picture.
Okay. Is it easier for you to measure that, the cost of the root cause of that delay?
I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by it. I tell people you can measure cost of delay in like 5 minutes, or you can approximate it.
Okay.
You don't need to get terribly precise. You don't need to do a huge study. Like 2-3 smart people in a room can figure out what a cost of delay is by saying, all right, how much time we're going to save if we fix this.
Okay.
Multiplied by the approximate number of people who are going to benefit from that.
Okay.
Multiplied by, let's take a wild ass guess about what they make. And that will give us an approximate cost of delay.
Got
it. We can do that in 90 seconds.
Okay.
To even assess whether or not it's worth more discussion.
Yeah.
There's a number of conversations where it's going to save one person 5 minutes once a month.
Yeah.
End of discussion.
Yeah. Cool. Corey, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, from a KPI standpoint, we're generally focused on productivity, man-hour focus, time-based, and also quality, safety, and coordination, collaboration, and communication, both internally and with our customers. So,
curious, are any of you measuring from a technology implementation perspective, just adoption in general, and so that you can look at the cost per user from an investment perspective to see, hey, is this tool really being democratized and being used and adopted, and those kind of things as well?
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Those are some easy metrics, right?
That's one of the things that we're actually super curious to see what happens when we roll out our new Oracle HCM platform, because that'll be the first time. We're 90% self-performed, so 75% of our employees are craft professionals.
Yeah.
Of that 17,000-ish. So, and we've never provisioned them any sort of digital identity or footprint. So we're highly curious to see how many people are going in and maneuvering around through the application and actually using it.
Yeah.
So we'll know here in a few weeks.
Cool. All right. With that, we're going to open up to some questions for the audience here. So feel free to ask any of the panelists here if any have any questions related to any of the topics we just covered today, whether it's organizational, project implementation, people, culture, talent, or measuring success. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them out.
On the human capital management project of Oracle, John, are you looking to take any of the performance of an individual employee related to them or their dossier as an employee at Zachry longer term to get a feel of individual work efficacy of an employee, or is it just to see how they manage themselves as part of the corporate enterprise as an employee for benefits, pay stubs, all that type of stuff? What's the overarching goal to connect all employees at Zachry with the solution?
The latter first.
Yeah, that's first one.
That's the latter of what you say to articulate. Right. Well, this is a big deal for us. Let's at least
first base.
First, that's first. But yeah, eventually, right. One of the there isn't a we are going to chase that. One of the other AWP advanced work packaging is a big deal in our mega project space.
Sure.
A lot of our owners, we happen to believe in it, but a lot of our owners happen to believe in it. So that's a good thing. But you have to be very disciplined, and it takes a lot of technology to provide a lot of visibility for AWP. Where I'm going with this, the punchline is we're piloting an AWP platform in another Oracle cloud application, and our plan is once we get all that connected, it'll all be in one cloud environment. We'll be able to do the former of what you said.
What's the is it O3?
Unifier.
Oh, you're going to
Unifier. It's a PaaS solution. It's not.
Yeah, it's
not a SaaS. It's not a.
It's the
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
It seems like there's a tremendous amount of different systems, platforms, technologies that can be applied. We're learning about a tremendous amount of different things. Would you say that it's coming on fast and furious? And at this point, you can't put your finger on a specific KPI to measure the success of all of the different technologies that are being implemented. In your respective industries, do you find that you are falling upon the same type of KPIs with these repeat clients and how you're implementing and utilizing the technologies that you're focusing on? I mean, you guys are using a wide range of pre-construction, pre-design software. Clients are coming to you and they're asking, or you're showing to the clients, hey, this is what we're going to do for the project. Are there KPIs that you guys are applying across a number of projects that are the same, and you're focusing on those?
Absolutely. I mean, one example I can think of right now for us is we do one repeat project. The project's the exact same job every single year for the last 10 years, right? And over the last 3 years, we've identified KPIs that are important for that specific project, and we've begin to implement these technologies, and we begin to see successes and failures on that same job, right? So we've utilized those KPIs that we've learned with that customer with that repeat project, because it's very difficult in this industry to get repeat projects, right? A lot, as we all know, everything is custom, everything is specialized. So with those repeat projects, we utilize the KPIs that we measure on those jobs, figure out the successes and failures, and then utilize KPIs that we, benefit from certain projects like that across our organization.
I think our focus around technology is how, I don't think any of those the KPIs, at least for us, they haven't changed, right? I mean, it's productivity, right? You got an estimate and then you go do the work, and you're either doing it in accordance to your estimate or you're not. I'm oversimplifying, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's the biggie, right? It's schedule, budget, and all those things are tied to productivity. But I think where we're using technology is how to make those KPIs more accurate and more timely. Because an example, right? Like an example is, well, when you work with an owner and you do some sort of open book estimate, they're gonna shred your unit rate, right? They're like, oh, wasn't there a hurricane when you did that job? So you got to pull. Anyhow, well, being able to have that data and use technology in a way to say, yeah, you know what? But if you're going to do a 5-year project that's 5 years long on the Gulf Coast, the probability of a hurricane hitting that project is like, I'm making this up, but it's 72%. So yeah, guess what? We're not going to extract that. We're going to use that in our unit rate. So I mean, it's just right. And you know what? If you're doing work on the Gulf Coast, there's going to be a lot of rain days. And we're building it in a swamp. When you go to put in the pilings, guess what? I don't know what you got in your estimate, but it ain't right. It's going to every time, like literally every single. So I think we're trying to leverage technology just to make the data more accurate. I don't think the KPIs are changing, but we're trying to leverage technology to drive more visibility, and more timeliness, being able to report those KPIs and then use them.
Related question. Any exposure or implementation of IoT-enabled tools that the trades are carried into the site, like anything there that you're trying to integrate into some of these things?
We do. All of our equipment have some sort of IoT, and we measure utilizations. I mean, we have customers now that require us to measure utilization. We got one customer that's like, we're only going to pay you for utilization time, which is a whole different. It's like, okay, well, you want us driving this 10-ton crane in out here? Yeah, that's stupid. Anyways, but yeah, we have most of those on all our major equipment. A lot of our small tools, they have devices on them, but it's more for theft versus really tracking anything. We aren't real sophisticated in tracking from a tool perspective. The major on-site equipment, yeah, oh yeah.
I think that hand tools are still kind of in the nascent days.
The technology's there. Yeah, we just haven't adopted it.
Great. All right, last question, and we'll wrap it up.
John, we're doing the same thing with Oracle and HCM and transition. How did you find your overall budget compared to costs at the end of it, and how much did you find you needed to redefine processes and procedures to be able to architect a system of that nature and really make it work for your staff?
We'll be about 40% over our original budget when we're done. The other question you ask that's a brutal one. Yeah, because we went, the technology we're replacing is, I'm not being funny. This is true. It's 30 years old. We haven't had an upgrade in 30 years in this space, and so we're jumping 3 generations of technology. We're going arguably one of the most modern cloud applications you can jump to. So yeah. So it has been littered with opportunities to build continuity from a business process perspective. And the hard part, quite frankly, and a lot of the extra cost comes from trying to figure out what can we bend on versus what will break the business if we modify our business process.
What's CSI?
We have 2, IBM and an eVerge.
Cool. All right. Well, that wraps it up. We've got a little bit of a break here for the next, 20 or so minutes. But thank you, panel, for the great insights, and thanks for participating and asking some questions as well. It was really thoughtful and insightful. So thanks a lot for the panel. Thanks again. And yeah, if you need to talk shop, you can find these guys and ask some more questions, I'm sure. But buy them a beer first or something. All right. Thank you.